Morning everyone. I'm back in my Jehovah's Witness days. The best opportunity to get to know each other was, apart from going to the meetings and things like that, is to go out in the field service. It's to go out in the field service or hang out with each other, like go to each other's places, have a little get together, have a little drink or whatnot. And this way we find out a lot of lovely facts and things about each other, our likes, our passions and talents. But also, as I'm sure you agree, quite disturbingly, we also found out quite a few disturbing facts as well. What some of our brothers and sisters basically endured. And not so much as a story, but just like an observation. Just very quickly, I want to relay this little story for you. One time, while I was helping to move apartments to one of our brothers and sisters, I think it was the congregation secretary and his wife. Beautiful, lovely couple. And she basically had lots of different passions. She was a very lovely musician, guitar player, also a very talented painter as well. And as I was commending her wonderful talent, she said, "Yeah, it is for my therapy, it's part of my therapy." And I'm very stupidly and unsensitively, I said something like, "So what do you need therapy for? We Jehovah's people are the happiest people on earth." And then I didn't, now I remember it, the whole conversation kind of froze a little bit. And but of course back then I didn't quite notice it, I didn't catch on. But this was before. But as I was saying, as I was helping them to move apartments, I was stocking stuff from all over the place, and I went under the sink in the kitchen, and it was absolutely full of booze, full of alcohols. I mean, hard spirits, as in, like, I'm talking vodka, rum, gin, cognac, what you name it, they had it. And I thought, well, they just, very innocently, I'm just thinking, okay, they like a bit of tipple every now and then, who doesn't? But a few months later down the line, as I was getting ready for work in the nightclub where I worked at security at the time, so we're all in the locker room, like rigging ourselves up with all protective gear and all this stuff, and radio, earpieces, and receive a phone call, and I see that this is from one of the congregation members from, I'm not going to mention her name, but this was the wife of that secretary, the congregation secretary, who I helped moved. And I picked up the phone because I thought it was an emergency. And as I was listening to her, I very quickly realized that she was absolutely blind drunk. I mean, what she was telling me, it didn't make no sense whatsoever. So I just politely told her, "Listen, I have to get ready for work, but I will call you tomorrow morning," because I was finishing like 5-6 in the morning at work. So I said to her, "I'm going to call her in the morning when she feels a little better," and then that was that. 2 days later, we have a meeting, right? So I thought very discreetly I'm just gonna go up to her, because I didn't want her husband to sort of, catch wind of it all. So I just asked her, "So how you doing?" And I mentioned our conversation. And to my greatest surprise, she had absolutely no recollection of her calling me. So I was very, very surprised at this, but I thought, okay, I just, I didn't think too much of it at the time. But then it happened again a few weeks later, and again another time after that. And this is kind of put the thought in my head, because as I was starting this video, as we were going out in field service, I was often paired up with sisters, sometimes elderly sisters, sometimes younger ones. And anyway, as we were chatting, going along, we're just basically talking like normal people, just to get to know each other and stuff. And I found out that a lot of them was basically sexually abused. There was this particular sister whose stepfather was abusing her, but because her mother was mentally handicapped, it was very hard for her to basically come forth with all this, to process this whole thing, because she couldn't talk it through with her mom. And when she mentioned anything, basically her mother just dismissed it. I don't know if it was out of maybe the sickness that, or the handicap state, mental state that she was experiencing or whatnot, or just plain refusal. This went on for years. Another sister was battered by her husband for years and years and years to come, and that was a JW couple, believe it or not. And another sister was enduring the terrible branding of her husband being a pedophile, because there was some facts came out about him that he in fact had run-ins with minors, with underaged children from the congregation. So they got transferred from another country, and from there they got transferred again to ours. So anyway, I got wind of all this, and this is basically that prompted me to make this video, to discuss the role and the hardship that Jehovah's Witness women and sisters in the congregation basically endure, because it was just getting too much. So I'm going to share with you some of my discoveries, and also will bring some articles from the Watchtower's own publication regarding these issues. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses are a patriarchal society where women are to view their husbands as their head. Only males are permitted to hold positions and teaching responsibilities in the congregation. And Watchtower in general continually have a demeaning view of women as they belong in the kitchen. And if you're a female Jehovah's Witness, well, your self-worth is being demolished little by Watchtower misogynistic and demeaning view of women. And the result of this exclusively male-dominated religion can be tragic, with three particular areas worth considering, which is child abuse, rape, and domestic violence. Now, the Watchtower headship arrangement follows a very strict and very selective Bible advice on the role of females. Paul's comment that the head of the woman is the man forms basically the foundation of the headship arrangement and underlying women's position in the congregation and in marriage. Men are the head of the woman on the basis that they were not created equally in power and in glory. Let's have a read this 1952 Watchtower article, which explains, "Man and woman were not created equal in power and glory. The man came first and was given special prerogatives. As Jehovah is the head over his wifely organization, and as Christ is the head over his espoused church, so the man the head over the woman. It is the woman that is commanded to show respect and recognition of the man's position of headship, and women who rebel at it are not so much rebelling against man as they are against God." And from examining the scriptures daily from 2021, the level of happiness a wife will experience in her marriage will depend to some extent on the decisions she makes before getting married. Millions of our Christian sisters set an excellent example in being submissive to their husband. They are to be commended. Did you feel the tone? Now, positions of leadership. All leadership positions in Jehovah's Witnesses are filled by men. Sisters will fill the very bottom position in this organizational hierarchy. The most senior position for a woman is being a pioneer. And whilst presented as a privilege, it's only basically just a sales role, utilizing free labor to grow the religion. Watchtower leaders have disturbingly expressed that women are much less capable than men. Samuel Hurd, who went on to become a governing body member, justified female subjection on the basis of their smaller brain size that makes them less intelligent. Here is an extract from his speech back from 1971 from the talk The Value of Our Theocratic Sisters by Samuel Hurd. Listen to this. You know, scientists say that the carnal capacity of a woman is 10% smaller than that of a man. So now this shows that she's just not equipped for the role of headship. Her role is one of subjection to the man. Her role is that of submissiveness, and that means that she should recognize that she is a woman and be glad to be a woman. Never want to be what you're not equipped to be. Sometimes we hear her say, oh, if I was a man, I'd do this and I'd do that, as if to be wishing to be something that she is not designed to be. Do you know what that borders on? That borders on homosexuality. And do you know what the devil is doing nowadays? He's taking women who want to be men and makes men out of them. And here is another from Judge Rutherford from 1941 September, Watchtower, page 287. Why then should a man who has the prospect before him of being one of the great multitude not tie himself up to a stack of bones and a hank of hair? Now this is Judge Rutherford's view on sisters and in women in general. A stack of bone and a hunk of hair. Aren't you flattered, ladies? So it is disturbing that the governing body is resorted to such sexist, misogynistic statements such as these. The concept that sisters are less capable because of their smaller brain size is simply untrue. Brothers with smaller heads are not prevented from being elders, as it is not physical size but behavior and capability that counts and determine the suitability to shepherd the congregation. Now the other disturbing part of Hurd's talk was that he was asserting women to homosexuals, whom Watchtower describes as loathsome and worthy of everlasting destruction. A comparison offensive on many levels, but to vilify capable sisters prepared to make full use of their talents. In the matter of teachings, now sisters are not permitted to teach brothers on spiritual matters. At the Kingdom Hall, only brothers are given teaching assignments such as public talks. They say, nowhere in the Bible, however, are women told to stand before the congregation to teach. Rather, the Apostle Paul instructed them to keep quiet in the meetings. Why? One reason, he wrote, is so that things would be done in an orderly way. For the congregation to run smoothly, God has assigned the role of teaching to one group. The Awake magazine 2010 July edition, page 29 reads, when sisters are assigned on parts on the platform, it will be practicing a presentation or answering questions from a brother handling a talk, and hence considered a learning experience for sisters. Okay, congregation tasks. Tasks in the congregation often referred to as privileges, and this covers roles such as operating the sound system, handling microphones to audience member when they answer a question in the congregation, and adjusting the microphone stand for those who are giving the talk on the podium. Other tasks are arranging like a speaker schedule, collecting money from contribution boxes, and doing congregation accounts and audits. And even these menial tasks are assigned to men whenever is possible. And after the introduction of the web conference software back in 2020, attendance at the Kingdom Hall has dramatically declined, leading to a shortfall in baptized men to carry out these tasks. So rather than assign them to women, in 2024 July, the announcement said that unbaptized boys should be used instead. July 2nd, 2024 announcement. Congregation tasks for exemplary unbaptized male publishers. The governing body is pleased to inform you that exemplary unbaptized male publishers may also be used to care for some congregation tasks that are appropriate for their age and circumstances. For example, an exemplary male publisher in his early teens or younger may be used to handle microphones and operate the sound and video equipment if permission has been granted by his parents or guardian. If sisters are currently being used to care for some of these practical tasks, please assign exemplary brothers, baptized or unbaptized, to care for the work. If there are not enough brothers, please contact the circuit overseer for direction before using sisters. Guidelines that comment on the very exceptional use of sisters, such as in video conferencing system for meetings, S-179, will be updated accordingly. So menial congregation task has nothing to do with teaching, But the Watchtower rather gave these assignments to men and unbaptized teenage boys or younger who don't know their ass from their elbows, excuse my outburst, than having women involved. So even something as controlling the sound system is rather being given to teenage boys than to sisters who are more capable and responsible than they are. Head coverings. Now, if a female Jehovah's Witness is required to fulfill an assignment that is normally assigned to brothers under the headship arrangement, she is required to wear a head covering as a sign of her submission. Correspondent Guidelines 2007, page 62. Generally speaking, a sister should wear a head covering when she is praying or teaching in the presence of her husband, even if he is unbaptized or if baptized is unable to speak or is handicapped physically or otherwise rendered mute, when she is praying or teaching in the presence of her minor baptized son, and when she is substituting for a brother in directing a meeting arranged by the congregation. Kingdom Ministry 2015, March, page 6. A sister should wear a head covering and would normally be seated when conducting a meeting for field service. Wifely subjection. Now, submissive wife submission is praised. While it's said that subjection to man it is not undignified, in truth is anything but. Watchtower 2008, November 1st, page 12. Before studying the Bible, I didn't think that my husband ought to be the head of the family. I like to make many decisions on my own. However, I gradually find that applying Bible principles contributed to the peace and happiness of our family. Slowly, it became easier for me to be submissive, and my husband has noticed these changes in me. Now, as a consequences in this male-dominated religion, like in all male-dominated religion, women and children are the group that's most exposed and taken advantage of in the following three areas: domestic violence, child abuse, and rape. Now, although Watchtower speaks against domestic violence, insisting that husbands are to show love and care for their wives, and that the wife is permitted to leave an abusive husband. Awake Magazine 2001, November 8, page 12 reads, "Should the battered wife leave her husband? The Bible does not treat marital separation lightly. At the same time, it does not oblige a battered wife to stay with a man who jeopardizes her health and perhaps her very life. Since the Bible does not forbid separation in extreme circumstances, what a woman does in this matter is a personal decision. No one should coax a wife to leave her husband, but neither should anyone pressure a battered woman to stay with an abusive man when her health, life, and spirituality are threatened. Spouse abuse is a brazen violation of Bible principles. No husband who claims to be a follower of Christ can really say that he loves his wife if he abuses her." But while they're declaring that they're allowing separation, they praise sisters who are staying with their abusive husbands, enduring violence in the hope that the non-believer mate will be won over without a word, change, and convert. Watchtower exerts social pressure on victims to remain with their abusers. In 2012, a truly shocking article was released praising a woman for staying with her husband who was violently abusing her. It reads, "Selma recalls a lesson she learned from the witness who studied with her. On one particular day, says Selma, I didn't want to have a Bible study. The night before, Steve had hit me as I had tried to prove a point, and I was feeling sad and sorry for myself. After I told the sister what had happened and how I felt, she asked me to read 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7. As I did, I began to reason, Steve never does any of these loving things for me. But the sister made me think differently by asking, how many of those acts of love do you show towards your husband? My answer was, none, for he is so difficult to live with. The sister softly said, Selma, who is trying to be a Christian here, you or Steve? Realizing that I need to adjust my thinking, I prayed to Jehovah to help me be more loving towards Steve. Slowly things started to change, and after 17 years, Steve accepted the truth." Watchtower 2012, February 15th, page 29. So that was worthwhile, having a battered face for 17 years? Her husband finally came to the truth. So rather than taking criticism on board, a 2018 Watchtower article once again encouraged Jehovah's Witness wives to endure domestic violence as a way to praise Jehovah, on the off chance that an unbelieving mate will become a true worshipper. So Watchtower says separation was only sanctioned for extremely physically abusive situations, and wives that remain despite extreme abuse are praised as loyal Christians. Now this is a shockingly dangerous advice because it encouraged the witnesses, the female witnesses, to stay with their abusive husbands and remain as victims of severe abuse and violence. He might be extremely physically abusive, even to the point that she feels that her health or life is in danger. He might refuse to support her and the family or severely endanger her spirituality. Some Christians have personally decided that a separation is necessary. But other Christians, in comparably difficult situations, have not. They have endured and tried to work on improving matters. Many loyal Christians have remained with an unbelieving mate under very trying circumstances. This is the Watchtower 2018 issue, December, page 14. So separation is advised against despite such dangerous situations because it can lead to challenges. What of her material and sexual needs? What about loneliness? Are there children to consider? Would a divorce make it harder to raise them in the truth? Watchtower 2018, December, page 12. So rather than focus on emotional and physical safety, Watchtower seemed to focus on her sexual needs that will lead her to the sin of adultery. And the marriage bond remains because abuse is not grounds for divorce. And hence, leaving may result in the woman committing fornication. Now there are other things that the Watchtower does not consider grounds for divorce. For example, in the Watchtower 1972 edition, January 1st, Questions for Readers, pages 31 and 32, do homosexual acts on the part of a married person constitute a scriptural ground for divorce, freeing the innocent mate to remarry? Now in the first part of this article, Watchtower lists Jesus listing fornication or adultery is the only reason for a grant to divorce. But you will see something truly shocking as the article goes further down. Have a read. So this is picking up from mid-article. Now in homosexual acts, the sex organs are used in an unnatural way, in a way for which they were never purposed. Two persons of the same sex are not complements of each other, as Adam and Eve were. They could never become one flesh in order to procreate. It might be added, in the case of human copulation with the beast, two different kinds of flesh are involved. Wrote the Apostle Paul, not all flesh is the same flesh, but there is one of mankind, and there is another flesh of cattle, and another flesh of birds, and another of fish. While both homosexuality and bestiality are disgusting perversions, in the case of neither one is the marriage tie broken. It is broken only by acts that make an individual one flesh with a person of the opposite sex other than his or her legal marriage mate. Did you catch that? So if you're a sister or a Jehovah's Witness wife, and you perhaps catching your husband having sexual intercourse perhaps with the family pet, or a sheep, or chicken, I don't know, name it. And then he comes and asking to make sweet love to you. That is not grounds for a divorce, so you are forced to stay with him. And that goes to homosexual acts as well. Well, does this make your blood boil or what? So back to domestic abuse. Another point is to notice that Watchtower articles are paint the offender as the unbelieving mate. So enduring the horror of domestic violence may eventually pay off as a reward for the submissive wife when her husband eventually recognizes her strength as proof that Jehovah's Witnesses have the truth, change his way and convert. But not only this, conversions are as rare as it can be. But this behavior is alarmingly common among Jehovah's Witnesses. And whilst an elder, he may suffer the consequences of losing their position of authority in the congregation, other domestic violence cases could lead to little or no action, particularly since Jehovah's Witnesses are discouraged from seeking outside help and hence do not report it to the authorities. Now, in regards to child abuse, Watchtower has came under tremendous fire back in 2014 and 2015 during the Australian Royal Commission of how they deal with accusations of child abuse. And the Commission has highlighted numerous ways in which Watchtower policy protected the guilty in favor of the victim of child abuse. One area was discussed that it is entirely inappropriate for a female or a young woman is to require to sit alone with 3 grown men, elders, and previously the male perpetrator as well, to determine their own guilt and that of the pedophile. Such an arrangement would never have been instituted if women had the role in assisting with establishing Watchtower policies. So the requirement for an innocent victim to appear before 3 male elders alone extends beyond child abuse and is required for a range of judicial cases. So it is intimidating enough for a male to be in this situation, let alone a young female. So when a judicial committee is formed to judge a case of a sexual nature, elders are asking a series of very private and intimate questions. There is no scriptural precedence for a victim to be forced to appear alone before 3 elders, with neither the term disfellowship or judicial committee appearing in the Bible, because Watchtower's format of judicial committee is not based in Bible principles. As the scripture discussed that a wrongdoer was to appear at the town center, not to be interrogated in private. There is scriptural precedence for women to be involved in working alongside the elders. The Old Testament speaks of Deborah, who was a judge and a prophet. So there is no reason that an older sister could not be involved in a judicial committee in the same capacity as the elders or supporting the accused. And now this topic of rape. Now, the Watchtower implies that a girl or a woman can bear responsibility for being raped. Listen to this. Thus, if a Christian woman does not cry out and does not put forth every effort to flee, she would be viewed as consenting to the violation. The Christian woman who wants to keep clean and obey God's commandments, then, if faced with this situation today, needs to be courageous and to act on the suggestion made by the scriptures and scream. Actually, this counsel is for her welfare, for if she should submit to the man's passionate wishes, she would not only be consenting to fornication or adultery, but be plagued by the shame. Watchtower 1964, January 15, pages 63-64. Another one. Also, that if she did not scream, she would ruin her relationship with Jehovah God and the Christian congregation, that then she would be disfellowshipped or excommunicated from it, and that this would be worse than being killed as far as she was concerned. That's the Awake magazine 1974, March 8, page 13-16. And it continues, a Christian woman is under obligation to resist, for the issue of obedience to God's law to flee from fornication is involved. By no means would it be proper for her willingly to submit to being raped. That's Watchtower 1980, October 15, page 7. But it doesn't end there. Why you should resist an attacker from the first moment. Your conscience will be clear. Even if you are raped, you will not sacrifice your self-respect or cleanness before God. Awake 1986, May 22, page 23. So, as if the horror and the lasting effect of being raped is not enough for a Jehovah's Witness woman, Watchtower burdens Jehovah's Witness rape victims with the guilt that they may have been responsible and sinned in the eyes of Jehovah. Now, this concept is unforgivable. In the light of Watchtower writers are fully aware that a woman would normally freeze in terror in these situations. And how hard a victim should resist is a subjective measure, leaving victims struggling with the guilt of whether they did not fight back hard enough to be forgiven by Jehovah for being raped. A woman is never deserved to be blamed for her rape, regardless whether or not she has screamed or not. And listen to this, Watchtower even advises that in the face of rape, take some time to consider that the attacker may have endured difficult circumstances and show respect to the intended rapist as a fellow human. This is from the Awake magazine 1984, February 22, page 24. The article called, Treat Him Respectfully. The intended victim should remember that the rapist is a human. No doubt there are circumstances in his life that have participated in his behavior. So, although a woman should not cower in fear and permit a rapist to intimidate her, at the same time she should treat him understandingly as a fellow human. Makes you puke, doesn't it? So as a conclusion, Watchtower praises women and Jehovah's Witness sisters in the organization, praising their many areas of accomplishments and value to the organization. It is said God directed for women to be respected and not considered inferior. Now this Watchtower does not once mention the headship arrangement. Note though that this is the public edition of the Watchtower magazine, which is distributed to the public, and it's used in the preaching word to attract people to the religion. So paying lip service to equality is just deflects attention from the core teachings that women are to submit themselves to the man and consider them as their head. The headship arrangement devalues women and has tragic consequences in the situations like domestic violence and rape or child abuse. Now, as concerning the positions of leadership, unfortunately many JW sisters confess that brothers are taking the lead in areas where sisters has greater capabilities or capacities. They justify the situation as beneficial because in order to comply they convince themselves that women are in fact inferior, and justify the Watchtower stance as necessary because women are too emotional to manage and lead. For example, in 2010 Stephen Lett gave a talk about women being part of the 144,000 rulers in heaven. Listen to this. And by the way, among these 144,000 will be many who formerly were human women. So you, dear sisters, you can be sure your feelings will be fully understood by this heavenly government. So this is the admission that women are not fully understood by the governing body elders, but yet they insist that women must comply with their decisions. So if women will be rulers in heaven as a part of the 144,000 and being able to be judges and prophets in Bible times, there is no good reason why shouldn't they have positions of influence in the congregation. So the Watchtower's governing body is predominantly composed of old white males. And while they may believe that themselves are doing good for women by following God's will in that matter, pointing to articles that speak highly of women, but their view of women is out of place and is damaging. Women are positioned as inferior despite rhetoric to contrary. Anyway, I hope this wasn't too long. I just wanted to simply speak out of my experience and some of the research that I have made on this topic. I hope you find it useful, and the articles are freely accessible to everyone to check up if you want to. But I've also found it important to say to those Jehovah's Witness sisters and women who are much rather prefer to bear life up alone rather than attach themselves to someone, to a marriage mate, to another man, because you previously had these experiences, or they were abusing your children perhaps, and you don't want no part of it anymore. And I totally get that. So this is why I thought it was important to mention these things, and for you to know that I completely understand your pain. I know this was a kind of a difficult video or difficult topics that you had to listen to, and some of the articles that you've heard me reading up, or you yourself known about and perhaps experienced in real life, which is even worse, has caused you not just many sleepless nights, but made you question your entire belief towards God. And it is because of men like these. But take courage. The Lord is not ignorant to your pain. And I can tell you that. He's not. But for now, I'm going to say bye. I hope this video wasn't too long, and hope if you managed to watch it until now, I hope you will ponder on these things. Until the next time, God bless you all. I love you all, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.